My name is Alina Caro. I'm 29 years old, and the message that erased me from my own family arrived at 12:17 p.m. on an ordinary Wednesday. I remember the exact time because I had just microwaved leftover pasta in the office break room. The fluorescent lights above me flickered faintly, and someone's phone was playing a TikTok video too loudly in the corner. It was normal, boring, safe. Then my phone buzzed. Dad. That alone wasn't strange. What was strange was the length of the message. My father, Harold Caro, believed in short texts. Call me. Where are you? Dinner Sunday. But this one filled the screen. I wiped my hands on a napkin before opening it, like it required clean fingers. You've made your choice. From this moment forward, you are no longer our daughter. Do not contact us again. We are cutting all ties. Don't come around ever again. I read it once, then again, then a third time, slower. No typo, no joke, no follow-up, just exile. For a few seconds, the world didn't move. The microwave beeped behind me. Someone laughed. A chair scraped across tile, and I stood there holding my phone like it had turned into something fragile and radioactive. 3 minutes later, the family group chat lit up. Melissa reacted with a red heart. Just that, a heart. Then she typed, "This is for the best." For who? I didn't feel the dramatic wave of heartbreak people describe. There were no tears, no shaking hands, just a hollow quiet spreading through my chest, like someone had slowly opened a window inside me and let all the air out. Because here's the thing. You don't get disowned out of nowhere. Not really. You get disowned when you stop being useful. 2 nights ago, I had dinner at my parents' house. My mother served lemon chicken like she always did when she wanted something. Melissa sat across from me, tapping her acrylic nails against her wine glass. She'd launched her 3rd business venture in 5 years. This time it was a wellness subscription box. Before that, a boutique. Before that, a marketing agency that lasted 6 months. And every time it failed, someone else paid. Usually me. Just a temporary guarantee, Dad had said, sliding papers across the table. The bank won't approve the line of credit without a stronger cosigner. You have excellent credit, Mom added gently. You're so responsible, honey. I used to hear pride in that word. Responsible. But this time, when Melissa pushed the folder toward me, I didn't reach for it. How much? I asked. 40,000, she said quickly. Bridge funding. Just until investors come in. I looked at her. Perfect hair. Perfect lipstick. No backup plan. No, I said. The silence that followed felt dangerous. Dad's jaw tightened. Excuse me. I'm not co-signing anything else, I said calmly. I'm buying my own place. I need my credit clean. Mom blinked at me like I'd spoken another language. Melissa laughed, short and sharp. Wow. Since when did you become so selfish? That was Sunday. By Wednesday, I was no longer their daughter. Back in the break room, my phone buzzed again. Mom, how dare you embarrass this family like that? Another message. Your father is devastated. Melissa again. Hope your new apartment keeps you warm at night. I stared at the screen. They were rewriting the story already. In their version, I had abandoned them. Not the other way around. What none of them mentioned, what they conveniently avoided, was the fact that my name was still attached to their second mortgage. Or that I had co-signed Melissa's previous failed boutique lease. Or that I'd paid off Dad's temporary retirement loan 3 years ago when his investments collapsed. I wasn't their daughter. I was their safety net. And safety nets aren't appreciated. They're expected. I walked back to my desk slowly and sat down. My coworker, Jenna, glanced over the cubicle wall. You look pale. You okay? Yeah, I said automatically. Just family stuff. She nodded with sympathy. Everyone understands family stuff. It's the universal explanation for emotional chaos. I opened my banking app, then my credit monitoring service, then the shared document folder I still had access to from Melissa's last venture. My stomach dropped. There it was, an active credit line request, pending review, submitted yesterday. Co-signer, Alina Caro. I hadn't signed anything. My pulse slowed instead of racing. That scared me more. They hadn't just asked. They'd assumed. And when I refused, they decided to erase me before I could erase my name from their debts. Another buzz. Dad again. If you try to interfere with this loan, there will be consequences. Consequences. I stared at the word for a long moment. Then, for the first time since the message arrived, I felt something solid form inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. I opened a new email and typed 3 words. Subject: legal consultation request. Then I responded to my father with a single sentence. I'll have my lawyer review everything tomorrow. I put my phone face down on the desk. If they wanted to cut ties, fine. But I would make sure they cut them clean. And this time, I wasn't going to be the glue holding everything together. This time, I was going to make sure there was nothing left tying me to them at all. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken. Because I was calculating. By 7:30 a.m., I was sitting in a glass-walled office across from a lawyer named Daniel Reeves, watching him scroll through the documents I'd emailed at 2 a.m. He didn't interrupt me while I explained. The disowning text. The pending credit line. The history of co-signing. The sudden threats. When I finished, he leaned back slowly. "Do you recognize this authorization?" he asked, turning his screen toward me. There it was. My name. My digital signature. Timestamped 3 weeks ago. Authorization to guarantee Melissa Caro's business line of credit in the amount of $40,000. "I never signed that," I said immediately. "Did you ever give her access to your email?" "No." "Did you ever share login credentials?" "Security questions." I hesitated. 2 years ago, when Dad's retirement account had been temporarily frozen, Melissa had called me in a panic. She'd needed my social security number for paperwork alignment. I'd given it to her over the phone. Because she was my sister. Because families share things. Daniel's expression didn't change, but his tone did. "This may constitute identity fraud." The words sat heavy in the air. Fraud. Not manipulation. Not misunderstanding. Fraud. "Can I just remove myself?" I asked quietly. "We can initiate a dispute. But if the loan processes before the bank verifies the signature, you could still be liable. We need to act quickly." I nodded. For the first time since that text message, I felt something close to anger. Not loud, explosive anger. Cold anger. The kind that settles in your spine. By noon, we'd filed a formal objection with the bank. Daniel also recommended freezing my credit temporarily. It felt extreme. It also felt necessary. When I stepped outside into the sunlight, my phone was vibrating nonstop. I almost didn't check it. Almost. Melissa had posted publicly a long caption beneath a filtered photo of her sitting at a cafe, chin resting dramatically on her hand. It's heartbreaking when the people who claim to love you care more about money than family. Some people forget who supported them when they had nothing. The comments were already piling up. "So sorry you're dealing with this. Family betrayal hurts the most. You deserve better." She hadn't named me. She didn't have to. Our last names were the same. My chest tightened, but not from guilt. From recognition. This was her move. If she couldn't control the narrative privately, she'd control it publicly. Within an hour, distant relatives began messaging me. "Your mom says you're refusing to help. Are you really suing your own sister? You know your father's blood pressure is high." I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I forwarded screenshots to Daniel. At 3:42 p.m., my father called. I let it ring twice before answering. "What are you doing?" he demanded without greeting. "Protecting myself. You're blowing this out of proportion. I didn't sign that loan." Silence. Then, it was a formality. Melissa submitted it because the deadline was tight. "You were going to agree anyway." My fingers tightened around the phone. "You don't get to decide that. You've always helped before," he snapped. "Why are you suddenly acting like a stranger?" "Because strangers don't steal your identity." But I didn't say that. Instead, I said, "If my name remains attached to that application, I will pursue legal action." He exhaled sharply. "You'd report your own sister?" "She forged my signature. It's family business." "No," I said quietly. "It's criminal." The line went dead. An hour later, Daniel called. "The bank flagged the application," he said. "There's a discrepancy in the IP address used for the digital signature. It traces back to your sister's home network." My stomach dropped, not from shock, from confirmation. "She did it," I whispered. "Yes." There it was. Proof. Not suspicion. Not paranoia. Evidence. I drove home in silence, the city lights blurring past the windshield. I expected to feel devastated. Instead, I felt awake. When I pulled into my apartment complex, Ethan was waiting outside my building, hands in his jacket pockets. He studied my face carefully. "Bad day. My sister committed fraud," I said flatly. He didn't ask for context. He didn't minimize it. He just stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me. And for a moment, I let myself lean into someone who wasn't calculating what I was worth. That night, Melissa texted, "You really went to a lawyer? Over paperwork?" I didn't respond. Another text. "If this investigation moves forward, you'll destroy us. Dad could lose the house." I stared at the message. Destroy us, as if I hadn't spent years holding them up. Then the final text came. "You think you're so clean? Let's see how clean you look when everyone knows the truth." I felt it then. The shift. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about control. And if she couldn't control me financially, she was going to try socially. I opened my laptop and logged into every account I owned. Passwords changed. Two-factor authentication enabled. Shared cloud folders revoked. Every digital door closed. If they wanted to disown me, fine. But they weren't going to own my name. By midnight, the bank sent confirmation. Loan application. Suspended pending fraud investigation. I stared at the notification for a long time. Then I whispered the words out loud, just to hear them. She didn't just lie. My reflection in the dark screen looked steadier than I felt. She committed fraud, and something told me this was only the beginning. The investigation didn't explode overnight. It simmered, and while banks move slowly, families move fast. By Monday morning, my name was circulating in conversations I wasn't part of. It started subtly. A text from my cousin Lila. "Hey, Aunt Diane said things are tense." "You okay?" Tense. That was the word they'd chosen. Not fraud. Not forged signature. Not financial liability. Tense. I replied carefully. "I'm handling it." She didn't push. But an hour later, another message arrived, this time from someone I hadn't spoken to in 3 years. "I heard you're trying to sue your sister? That's extreme, don't you think?" There it was. The rewrite. I wasn't protecting myself. I was attacking. I set my phone down slowly on my desk and stared at my computer screen without seeing it. Around me, keyboards clicked. Phones rang. The normal rhythm of work continued, unaware that my entire family was busy building a version of me that didn't exist. At 11:15 a.m., my manager knocked lightly on my cubicle wall. "Alina, do you have a second?" Her tone wasn't accusatory, but it wasn't casual either. Inside her office, she closed the door gently. "I received a call this morning," she said carefully, "from someone claiming to be your mother." My pulse didn't spike. It slowed. "What did she say?" "She was emotional. She mentioned you were under stress, that you might not be in the best place mentally right now." I blinked once. "Mentally?" She suggested we keep an eye on you. "For your safety." There it was. If they couldn't control my finances, they'd question my stability. "I'm fine," I said evenly. "And I'd prefer my personal life remain separate from my professional one." My manager studied me for a moment, then nodded. "You're one of our most reliable employees. I trust your work. But if anyone contacts the office again, HR will need documentation." Documentation. That I could provide. When I returned to my desk, I forwarded the fraud investigation notice to my personal email and printed a copy. If they wanted a narrative war, I would fight it with paper. That evening, Melissa escalated. She sent a mass email to extended relatives. I know because one of them forwarded it to me with a single line. "This doesn't sound like you." The email was long, emotional, carefully constructed. She wrote about years of sacrifice and how she'd always supported her little sister. She described my refusal to co-sign as a betrayal that triggered an emotional breakdown. She implied I was being influenced by Ethan. She never mentioned the forged signature. She never mentioned the investigation. Instead, she painted herself as a struggling entrepreneur abandoned by a cold, money-obsessed sibling. By the time I finished reading, my hands were steady. I didn't feel rage. I felt something sharper. Recognition. This wasn't new. They'd always controlled the story. When Dad's investments failed, it was bad timing. When Melissa's businesses collapsed, it was market conditions. When I paid off their debts, it was family helping family. But when I said no, suddenly I was unstable, ungrateful, cruel. At 9:07 p.m., my phone rang. Dad. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. You need to stop this, he said immediately. Stop what? Making us look like criminals? I let that hang between us. If the label fits. Watch your tone, he snapped. You're embarrassing this family. I closed my eyes briefly. You disowned me by text. That was heat of the moment. But the forged signature wasn't. Silence. Then quieter, more dangerous. You think reporting your own sister makes you strong? No, I said calmly. It makes me safe. He exhaled sharply. Melissa is panicking. Investors are backing out because of this investigation. She should have thought about that before using my name. You've always been dramatic. There it was again. Minimize. Redirect. Blame. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't file charges, I said. The bank did. Another silence. And then, if you don't withdraw the complaint, don't expect us to ever forgive you. I almost laughed. Forgive me. You already cut ties, I reminded him. He hung up. Later that night, Daniel called. The bank's IT department confirmed the IP address used for the digital signature belongs to your sister's home router, he said. They've escalated it to their fraud division. Does that mean? It means this is no longer just a family disagreement. I sat down slowly on my couch. Outside, city lights flickered through the blinds. This could become criminal, he continued. You need to decide how far you're willing to go. How far? For years, I'd gone as far as they needed. Now I was being asked how far I'd go for myself. After we hung up, Ethan sat beside me. They're telling everyone you're unstable, I said quietly. He nodded once. Are you? I almost smiled. No. Then let them talk. It's not that simple. I know, he said gently, but truth has a way of surfacing, especially when there's evidence. Evidence. That word felt solid, grounded, not emotional, not dramatic, just factual. As I lay in bed that night, my phone face down on the nightstand, I realized something unsettling. They weren't afraid of losing me. They were afraid of losing access to me. And when access disappears, control follows. By morning, the fraud division had formally contacted me for a statement. And for the first time since that text message arrived, I understood something clearly. This wasn't about reconciliation anymore. It was about accountability. And someone was about to learn the difference. The fraud division meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 10 a.m. I arrived early, not because I was nervous, but because I needed to feel steady. The bank's corporate office felt colder than usual. Glass walls, neutral carpet, everything designed to look clean and controlled. Unlike my family, a woman in her early 40s introduced herself as Investigator Ramirez. Her handshake was firm, eyes sharp but not unkind. We just need clarity, she said as we sat down. Walk us through when you first realized the authorization wasn't yours. I explained everything. The dinner, the refusal, the disowning text, the pending credit line. She took notes quietly. Then she slid a printed document toward me. This is the digital consent form submitted 3 weeks ago. I studied it carefully. My name, my address, my email, my digital signature. Perfect. Too perfect. Notice the timestamp, she said. 2:14 a.m. I blinked. At 2:14 a.m. I was asleep. We know. She turned another page toward me, a technical report. The IP address traces back to your sister's apartment. Additionally, the authentication code was retrieved from a backup email account. Backup email. My stomach tightened. An old account I'd stopped using years ago. I forgot that existed, I whispered. Your sister didn't. There it was. The calculated part. She hadn't panicked. She planned. We've frozen the application permanently, Ramirez continued. But I need to be transparent. If she attempts to access your identity again, this escalates. Attempts again. The phrase lingered in my mind. Because Melissa didn't lose gracefully. She doubled down. I found out how far she was willing to go 2 days later. It was Saturday night. Ethan and I were halfway through dinner when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something in my chest told me to. Hello. Is this Alina Caro? A male voice asked. Yes. This is Officer Green with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need to ask you a few questions. My fork slipped from my hand. What happened? There was an attempt today to initiate an emergency bridge loan under your name. The system flagged it immediately due to the active fraud alert. My vision tunneled slightly. She tried again. Yes. I closed my eyes. Not once. Twice. She appeared in person at a partner lending office, he continued. Presented identification, including copies of prior signed documents. My heart thudded, slow and heavy. She physically showed up. Yes. When the system blocked the application, she left quickly. Ethan was watching me closely now. I put the phone on speaker. Is she being charged? I asked. There's now sufficient evidence to proceed, the officer replied. Given the prior investigation, this is no longer ambiguous. I swallowed. This wasn't messy family drama anymore. This was criminal behavior. We'll need your formal statement to move forward. I nodded even though he couldn't see me. Yes. After the call ended, silence filled the apartment. Ethan exhaled slowly. She risked jail. For money, I said. No, he corrected gently. For control. And that was worse. The next morning, my phone exploded. Dad. Mom. Melissa. Voicemail after voicemail. I listened to one. Dad's voice, tight with rage. What have you done? The police came to the house. Melissa is terrified. Withdraw the complaint. Now. Withdraw. As if I'd invented the evidence. Another voicemail. Mom sobbing. She didn't mean it, honey. She panicked. We're family. Don't let outsiders ruin us. Outsiders. As if I hadn't been pushed outside first. Then a text from Melissa. You actually call the cops? Over paperwork. You've lost your mind. I stared at the words. I hadn't called anyone. She had walked into a lending office with forged documents. Again. That evening, there was a knock at my apartment door. 3 sharp knocks. Ethan and I exchanged a look. He moved first, opening it halfway. Melissa stood there. Perfect hair. Perfect coat. Eyes blazing. You need to call them, she said immediately, stepping forward. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. No, I said calmly from behind Ethan. Her gaze locked onto mine. You're ruining my life. You tried to steal mine. She scoffed. It was temporary. Identity fraud isn't temporary. You always think you're better than us, she snapped. Miss Perfect credit score. I just don't commit felonies. Her face flushed. You think Dad's health can handle this? You want him in the hospital. There it was. The weaponized guilt. I stepped forward. You disowned me, I said quietly. You made that choice. That was emotional. So was stealing my identity. She faltered for half a second. Then anger returned. If you don't fix this, I swear I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you are. I almost smiled. They already think I'm unstable, I said. You told them that. Her jaw tightened. You think you've won? This isn't a game. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. If I go down, I'm not going alone. A threat, but empty. Because the evidence didn't point to me. It pointed to her. Ethan stepped fully between us. You need to leave. She hesitated, maybe expecting me to crumble. I didn't. After a long, burning stare, she turned and walked down the hallway. Her heels echoed until they disappeared. I closed the door gently. Not slammed. Not dramatic. Just closed. And in that quiet click, something shifted permanently. She hadn't just reacted emotionally. She had escalated deliberately. Twice. And now, the consequences weren't hypothetical. They were real. 3 days later, Officer Green called again. Charges are being filed, he said. I sat very still. Okay. You'll be notified of court dates. You won't need to pursue anything further unless new evidence arises. After I hung up, I stared at the wall for a long time. I expected triumph. I felt none. Just a strange, steady calm. They had cut ties by text. My sister tried to tie me back with forged debt, and now the rope had snapped in her hands. For the first time, I understood something clearly. This wasn't revenge. It was the natural consequence of someone believing they were untouchable. And the storm wasn't over yet. By Monday, the news had spread, not on social media this time, not in whispered messages. This time, it hit home in a way I hadn't expected. A neighbor from their street messaged me. Your parents' house, they've had a notice posted. Pre-foreclosure. Just wanted you to know. I froze, coffee halfway to my lips. The words didn't sting. They didn't elicit anger, only a hollow sense of recognition. The Carroll family had built their comfort on borrowed stability, on my credit, on my patience, on my willingness to keep the facade of a perfect family alive, and now it was gone. Ethan came up behind me, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Are you okay?" I nodded slowly. "I think this is the truth. They built everything on me, and without me it crumbles." The next few days were strange. Silence, but not peace. The house's pre-foreclosure notice was real. The debts they had leaned on me for had spiraled. The very loans I'd refused to co-sign after years of manipulation became their undoing. And the most ironic part? They blamed me. Melissa posted again on social media. This time, photos of herself outside the Carroll house, a forced smile, boxes stacked in the driveway. Her caption carefully curated. Some hard lessons come late, but family is forever. No mention of the fraud. No mention of the loans she had tried to force under my name. Just spin. Rewrite. Control. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. Ethan and I spent the evening quietly. Pasta on the stove. Candles flickering. A movie playing softly in the background. He didn't ask me about the posts. Didn't ask me about the house. He just held my hand. That simple gesture, no words, no expectations, grounded me more than months of therapy or confrontations ever could. Weeks later, I checked the foreclosure status online. The house had been listed for sale. Empty rooms. Peeling paint. The kitchen island I had helped maintain now chipped. The yard overgrown. They had no one to support them. No safety net. No leverage. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not glee. Just clarity. The reality was simple. My parents, my sister, had built their world on borrowed credit, mine. And when I stepped back, the walls they built around themselves collapsed. It was a strange kind of liberation. I finally understood the difference between being responsible and being exploited. Between love and obligation. Between helping and being used. Then came the emails. From my mother first. "Marty, please. We are struggling. Your father's health isn't good. We just need a little help to get back on our feet. One more chance." And from Melissa. "You don't understand. Everything is falling apart. We just want our family back." I didn't reply. Not because I didn't feel anything. Because I realized replying would only restart the manipulation. Their requests weren't about reconciliation. They were about leverage. And I no longer provided any. Instead, I opened my laptop and made a decision. The money that I might have sent them, the money that for years had been siphoned into their problems, debts, and crises, I redirected. A women's shelter I had donated to years ago was running a campaign. Helping families escape financial abuse. I sent a donation, a real one this time, not to prop up lies, not to fix what they had built on my back, but to help someone start fresh, someone who needed it, truly. The next morning, Ethan and I drove past their house. Boxes were gone, curtains ripped down, a for sale sign tilted on the lawn. Silence. I didn't feel revenge. I didn't feel victory. I felt something I hadn't in years. Peace. Back at our apartment, life felt lighter. Breakfasts unhurried, laundry shared, quiet evenings without tension. Bills were paid on time without fear. And for the first time, I slept through the night without anxiety gnawing at me. Months passed. I still occasionally heard from distant relatives, sympathetic, curious, or meddling. They asked if I had reconsidered, but the answer was always the same. No. I finally began to understand something profound. Cutting ties wasn't just about stopping the manipulation. It was about survival. About creating space to breathe, to grow, to rebuild. Ethan became my anchor. Not just for emotional support, but for perspective. He never judged my decisions. Never questioned my boundaries. For the first time in my adult life, I felt supported without strings attached. And as winter gave way to spring, a sense of normalcy began to settle. No more urgent texts. No more guilt trips. No more crises created to control me. Just life, ordinary, predictable, and mine. The Carroll house eventually sold. I never saw the final amount. I didn't care. It wasn't my problem anymore. The real estate agent had taken over. The debts had not been mine to fix. And when I finally realized that, I felt a strange weight lift from my shoulders. I didn't block all reminders of them. Not because I wanted to leave a door open, but because I wanted to remember the lesson. That love built on control is not love at all. That responsibility doesn't mean exploitation. That family isn't always safety. And that freedom, sometimes, comes at the cost of letting go completely. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel guilty about living for myself. I didn't feel guilty about thriving. And that clarity, more than any money, more than any legal victory, more than any apology they might offer in the future, was worth everything I had endured. Spring arrived quietly. The morning smelled of damp grass and fresh coffee, and the city outside our windows looked brighter than it ever had before. Ethan and I moved into a new apartment, bigger windows, sunlight pouring in, space that finally felt ours. It wasn't extravagant. It didn't need to be. It was ours. And for the first time, every item in the apartment belonged to us, not borrowed, not manipulated, not guilt-trapped. I often caught myself pausing, just listening. No urgent pings, no frantic calls, no subtle hints that I had failed as daughter, sister, or savior. Silence, once terrifying, had become restorative. We unpacked boxes slowly, laughing at old mementos I had saved, a sweater my mom had insisted I take, a chipped mug from a birthday that never really mattered. I found one last item from the old apartment, a photo of me at 16, standing in front of the Carroll house. Dad had written on the back, our glue. "You keep us together." I smiled faintly. Glue breaks when stretched too thin. That's what I had learned. And sometimes, when it breaks, you finally get to build your own life from the pieces, without anyone else's weight pressing on you. Work flourished. My promotion at the firm gave me space to lead, to grow, to invest in myself. Each morning I arrived at my office, I felt lighter, not heavier. The old anxiety that had plagued every decision, will they call? Will they need me? Will I be blamed? Had evaporated. Ethan noticed the shift more than anyone. One evening, as we cooked dinner together, he said casually, "You look lighter." "I am," I whispered. "I finally don't feel like I'm carrying anyone else's life on my back." He smiled, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear. "This is the life you deserved all along." And it was. Occasionally, distant relatives would reach out, trying to mediate or justify. But I no longer felt the compulsion to explain or negotiate. They had lost control, not because I fought them aggressively, but because I refused to participate in their drama. Silence had become my shield, my clarity, my power. Months passed, and the Carroll house sold. I didn't attend the auction. I didn't need to. The debts they had constructed on my credit no longer existed. Their pretense, their manipulation, their financial reliance, all gone. And when the realization settled in, I felt only relief. Melissa attempted subtle digs on social media, framed as philosophical musings or vague captions about family. I ignored every single one. Not because I was spiteful, but because I had already moved beyond needing their validation or confrontation. I began therapy in earnest. Dr. Hull helped me untangle years of guilt, obligation, and learned helplessness. She asked the questions that no one at home ever did. When was the last time someone loved you without needing something? I had no answer then. Now I did. Ethan, friends, even my own hard-won solitude, all unconditional. That love wasn't transactional. It wasn't exploitative. It was simply there. One rainy afternoon, Ethan and I sat on our balcony, watching drops fall against the glass. I thought of all the storms I had endured, the manipulated loans, the emotional guilt, the identity theft, the threats, the pretense of being the glue. And I realized something profound. Survival wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about showing them they were wrong. It was about reclaiming myself. I smiled faintly at Ethan. "You ever think about what you'd say if they showed up again?" He shrugged, reaching for my hand. "You tell them." "Thank you," I said softly, "for teaching me what not to accept, for forcing me to build a life that's mine." He squeezed my hand. "You really are unshakable." "Unbreaking," I corrected, half laughing. "For the wrong people." That night, I placed the last photo from my past in a drawer. Not as a wound, not as a trophy, but as a reminder. Love built on control isn't love. And sometimes letting go isn't abandonment, it's survival. Life moved on. Ethan and I thrived. Work, friends, quiet dinners, laughter in the kitchen. Occasional texts from people curious about the fallout, all blocked. My phone stayed silent, my mailbox untainted. For the first time in decades, I slept without dread. I planned vacations without guilt. I invested in experiences instead of bailing out crises. Months later, while scrolling social media on a Sunday morning, I saw Melissa again. Standing outside her apartment, smiling in a posed photograph captioned, "New beginnings. Learning to love myself." I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel validation. I felt recognition. She hadn't changed. She had just moved the same old story somewhere else. And I no longer had any part in it. Ethan noticed my gaze and said softly, "Block her." "I already did," I murmured, smiling faintly. Freedom isn't dramatic. It's not revenge. It doesn't need to be loud. It's the quiet certainty that no one else can pull you back into chaos. That no manipulation, no guilt, no entitled expectation can define your life. And finally, for the first time in my adult life, I belonged to me. Because they once called me their glue. They never realized glue breaks when stretched too thin. And when it breaks, you can finally build your own life. No debt, no guilt, no manipulation, no one's version of love, only mine. The city lights flickered outside our windows. The hum of traffic, the soft warmth of our apartment, the smell of garlic and wine, it all felt real. Solid. Mine. I took Ethan's hand and held it. "We're okay," I said softly. "Yes," he replied. "You're finally free." And in that moment I realized it. I wasn't just free from them. I was free for him.